why? If the private person also
very briefly on this,
you know the danger to the economy.
Let me just respond
on the bit about the cushioning, which is important.
So, Alfred, before Council Bento comes in, you see, I keep talking about how data is manipulated and all of that. Listen, everything Edudzi said about the Russian-Ukraine war, Iran-Israel war conversation is completely misleading.
What do you mean?
There is a specific comparative analysis we are doing. You can only do it contextualizing it within the same period.
So context.
Oh, I beg you.
No, I say so.
You
context.
don't go and pick a war that had run for 12 months in November or 11 months, November 2022, implication, and come and compare it to an analysis that we are doing for you in 3 months. The point I'm making here is this, and it's fact. Between February 24th, 2022 to April 2022, the fuel pricing increase was just about 28%. At a time when crude oil price was over $120. The fact is that today, even with the 6 years of exchange rate that we have, in 3 weeks, or take it as between 24th February 2026 and April, as we speak, your fuel price have increased by 56%. With crude oil way lower than it was in 2022 within the same war period. Think about it. This is even at a time when
don't let you.
This is stop interrupting me. Don't do that.
No,
I'm just giving you figures.
No, you are confusing.
Edudzi, you know when you're speaking, I was giving you a lot of respect. Don't do that.
Please, don't do that.
Don't do that.
You are intervening. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Can I continue now? Now, Council, let me continue giving you the information.
Yeah, sure.
Now, in Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, and whatever that is going on there, we are talking about 20%.
Okay.
20% of the crude supply.
Yes.
The Russian-Ukraine war, Russia alone contributes about 30% of the global crude supply. And let me blow your mind. Russia's crude was sanctioned. So if he tells you that, ships were moving, it is a lie. Russia's crude was sanctioned. What it means is that 30% of global crude supply was cut off.
Yeah. And
these are even areas that we trade more than we even do through the Strait of Hormuz. So don't let us attempt to try and use numbers to mislead anybody in the conversation. The implication of Russia-Ukraine war on Ghanaian economy is way more than it is from Iran. That does not mean. That does not mean.
You just want to give yourself comfort for your incompetence.
That does not mean. That does not mean that. That does not mean that this government has done that. And again, you see, I've said it. I even said it from the get-go that I have always said that I give every credit to the government when it comes to the exchange rate performance. Whatever it is, the fact that they are using their gold purchase program, which was introduced by Bawumia, whatever it is, they are doing it. And it's giving results. But think about it. My final point. Think about it. How is it that you have managed exchange rate so well? And it is at 10.99. And yet, crude oil is way lower than it was during Russia-Ukraine war. But diesel today is higher, more expensive than it was at the time that you came to. That is the question you should be asking yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are the things that we should be asking. What is happening? You are telling us, and please, I'll end. You are telling us that it is crude, it is exchange rate, it is margins. Crude is lower than it was during Russia-Ukraine. Dollar is lower than it was during Russia-Ukraine. Today, diesel is more expensive than you came to meet it. Those are the questions you should be responding to.
I think that
you want your now. What again do you want? No, but you said the time. It's okay. It's okay. We could hear it. But why?
There was a question. There was a specific question too. Exactly why the situation is.
No, I have it as a rhetorical question. It's a rhetorical question. He doesn't have to. No, if he wants to, I'll respond again. What are you doing? We're having a debate. We're having a quarter time. What are you talking about? Why? I didn't ask him to respond to it.
Hold on.
We do not have the benefit of different set of facts. No.
So what are you doing right now?
So
I'll respond.
The fact is simple.
No. You do that what I'm hearing. Simple. What are you talking about?
January 7th, 2025, when President Mahama took over the administration of this country, Russia-Ukraine war continued. So let's say that Russia contributes 30% of global crude input, like he said. But what is not in doubt, respectfully, is that November 2024, listen carefully, a metric ton of diesel was going for $666 for every metric ton. November 2024. You were in government then. By now, that same metric ton had gone to almost $695, a few dollars up. So the price dynamics keeps changing. However, what is also not in doubt is that by November, December 2024, in fact, on the 4th of December 2024, a liter of diesel went for 15.80.
You didn't come to office in December 2024.
But I am saying,
when you took office in January 2025, what did you inherit? It is more today.
Okay. It is more today. It's not in doubt.
You have sent diesel higher than you inherited. That is what you must admit.
It's not, end on the cushioning, because I want us to...
You haven't even responded to that.
It's not in doubt that when President Mahama took over price of fuel, we're doing a little over 14 Ghana cedis, 15 Ghana cedis. That's a fact. You can easily check. In fact, I have heard Dr. Mahamadu Bawumia, even on his re-election to be flag bearer, says that, can you imagine, a few days into election, fuel prices were increased without me.
What did you inherit?
He made that point.
What did you inherit?
Even on his re-election.
What did you inherit?
But until this conflict, prices of petroleum products for 13 months, reversing is here, sold lower than we
Very
think
true,
it.
but the same conflict shut it up.
Now listen, because
the same conflict shut it up.
The exchange rate cushion. There are two ways of cushioning these dynamics, and it's important I made it abundantly clear. A better management of the exchange rate also helps. In that, even before the last quarter, the BDCs were trading the dollar for 10.9. If today they would trade it for, say, 11.15, regardless of what cushion government puts in, it can wipe it away. So you hold two things in check in this cushioning. You see, we have framed the conversation as though it is only when maybe taxes and levies are removed, that is when government had provided a cushion. So better money.
So why is exchange rate so low and diesel is so high right now that you inherited?
No, answer that question.
I'm rounding up on this.
You are listening to yourself.
I'm listening to you. Answer that question.
The danger is that, and I'm answering you, 28th February 2026, miracle, a metric ton of diesel was 695. Please jot it down. 695. Today, that same metric ton, nothing, that same quantity, is 1,347.
So you don't control it, isn't it?
That's double,
isn't it? So you don't control it.
Why you don't control it?
So why are you trying to?
Now this is it.
You jump on one side to let go, and on the other side you say, "I have done well."
I do not have the benefit and the privilege of being in cabinet.
Okay.
But thankfully, my sector minister was there.
Okay.
After cabinet, agencies under him, we had to have a meeting.
Okay.
To see how the president's, conversation will be fully implemented. And we have run the scenarios. Okay. Thankfully, the sector minister, by Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he'll be telling the people of this country the government for sensitive approach in having a conversation relative to the downstream. I listened to my senior brother and Kofi Bento makes the point and what should be the case, what ought not to be the case. Senior Kofi, Ghana just didn't start. I recall vividly a conversation I had with the respected John Ato Forson, a man arguably who has Ghana's energy blueprint and has worked with it. And he tried, just to let me know the conversations that resulted even in the formation of BOST. and how he approached the then president, former President Rawlings, on the need for a strategic state institution just to keep reserves. That thinking is relevant then and is relevant today.
If they are doing it.
I'm just coming. Over the period, it does appear that there had been some, attempt to dilute, let me say, mandates. So, in the past, maybe it was just for strategic storage. The dynamics of other times also brought into fore the critical question whether we should remain a strategic storage, quasi-strategic storage, or it should get involved in trading. And I'll give an example. Between 2014 and 2015, if you recall, there was a major thing that happened in this country that resulted in queues at the stations. At the time it happened, it wasn't the case that there was no product in the country. The BDCs were upset with government and said there were legacy debts because at that time we were providing subsidies. And so when the BDCs go to buy products, they need forex. By the time they come, if there are forex differentials, they want government to absorb that forex differential loss. So before we realize, we had accumulated huge funds in the name of forex differential losses and other under recoveries, and I will call it forex differential losses. You understand? So one day they woke up and said, well, even though we have products, if you don't pay us, we won't release the product. So government at that time said, look, the idea, in fact, it was a national security concern, that the idea where private people can hold the state to ransom can't compromise national security. In fact, in Angola, fuel price shortage nearly resulted in a change in government. There was demonstration, and in fact, 21 or so people died in that process. So the idea of fuel is so critical, and no government can play with it. So at that time, leadership response was that, okay, why not? Beef up busts. Let busts go into the actual idea of trading and not only storage. Buy the product. If you buy the product, at least it will minimize the impact of the private sector holding everything. It was a leadership response to a crisis. Then 8 years came. It's been so. The status quo has remained. And that is what we have today.
Up to now.
And so bust remains a strategic intervention in the petroleum downstream. Please, anybody that tries to, as it were, discredit the continuous relevance of busts is playing the ostrich game and does not understand the current dynamics in our petroleum architecture. When President Akufo decided at that time to have the works, what today we call, at that time it was called Petroleum Tender Review Board. And through that, set up what is now called the National Petroleum Authority in 2005. It was almost a part of the mandate of the Energy Commission at that time. They were running that role. And then it was now set up as a whole authority. And that is what we have today. At that time, a new architecture was introduced called the bulk oil distribution license, the BIDEC license. It's relevant, you cannot, because at that time, you know it, they were doing on the spot emergency cargo purchases. That was also bringing its own debt accumulation on the books of government.
Sure.
And so everything that has happened in this country was either to solve a mischief economically, politically, or what have you. So please, in terms of the architecture, this is what has brought us here. Look, what is also not in doubt. Look, for 8 solid years, Boss couldn't increase its tankage, storage, by 1 more liter. Yes. Today.
For 8 years, within which period are you talking about?
I'm just saying for 8 years.
Okay.
what is not also in doubt is that by reason of geography, all our discharge facilities, incidentally, are coastal, either Takoradi or Tema. Regrettably for Takoradi, we've not been able to increase our storage facilities in Takoradi. So you have a good, depth and everything, but you can't even berth bigger vessels because then the question of storage comes in. Regrettably, instead of the state intervening to build those storage, because the private person, where he puts his money, he wants immediate return. True. But the state has a responsibility to ensure greater public good. So you don't necessarily invest because of the returns. You sometimes invest because of tomorrow. So significantly, we have been depending on a private person, I think Blue Ocean also, yes, to provide us critical storage in the Western Corridor. Why should that be so?
That's what Boss should have been doing.
So the point I'm making is that it's somebody's responsibility, and for 8 years nothing happened. But I'm saying that today, as we speak, through the proactive, leadership of my brother Afechi, that's one of the areas we want to look at. Keep the storage there, not necessarily for consumption today. Look, when this Iran crisis happened, the International Energy Agency, which deals with, there are two, International Energy Commission and the agency, the one that deals with petrol and others, decided that they will raise 400 million barrels of crude into the system to contain the shocks. US gave 122 million. Japan, South Korea did 22 million. And other countries contributed. That brought about 400 million. That's about thinking into tomorrow. Regrettably, we have not been able to do that. And also because today, the SIGA and all those people expect boss to declare profits. Yes. If you expect me to declare profit, then I can't store. I need to trade.
Okay. So I think
look, we are on boss. Just on what he ended.
Let's you make your point.
Yes, because I have to come to miracles. Yes. Expected to declare profit. Meanwhile, if you look at for strategic stocks and all that, that is confused policy making. That is number one.
No, but the originalist view was that it should be a strategic story.
I'm coming.
But with the benefit of time and changing circumstances, things have changed.
It's over 30 years old. It was set up supposedly to make sure we have strategic stocks to help us through troubled times. It's never done that. Never. One. Two, you creep in your mission to go to now competing on the market and selling products. Meanwhile, we taxpayers, poor people, rich people, everybody, pays every day we buy fuel to finance you, boss, to go and trade something that people are doing with their own capital and making profit. And they make serial losses. So you are supposed to do strategic stocks. We're giving you money. You've never been able to do it. Two, you say you are not going to trade. We give you money to go and trade. You trade, you make losses. Every time boss is in the news, it's because there's been some corruption, fuel, contamination, or whatever it is. And today, as we speak, he's telling us that boss is not able to do his job. Meanwhile, we are paying money. And we are looking for ways to reduce the fuel price, something that has not worked for 30 years. And every time they are in the news, it's about corruption. We are basically contributing and people are putting it in their pockets. We lose nothing by losing a failed institution that consistently makes losses. So if we are looking for a place to cut bust.
You mean the boss margin?
I think
we've never.
Hold on. I think this your interview.
Have we ever gotten
Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
After 30 years.
Yes.
Like I pointed out, it's a very evolving and fluid environment. And so usually I do not want the conversation to be binary.
30 years of experience.
Loss or profit. If you put the conversation within the framework of loss and profit, you lose it. What is also not in doubt is that the role of boss today is critical.
They've never achieved
this. It's critical.
It is
boss remains a strategic state intervention in the petroleum downstream. Any other person that gives an alternative theory cannot or does not appreciate what the real issues are. But you see, it's convenient to say that, oh, but the private people are able to bring the products, but the state is the one financing boss to do whatever it has
to make losses.
Do. And then at the end of the day, it is making losses. I mean, it's a convenient conversation.
It is the fact.
Very convenient.
Okay.
But there still remain a strategic state intervention in what happens within the downstream. I will not sit here and belittle the work that BOST is doing for our downstream.
Okay.
It remains a relevant thing. What may be the problem is that the originalist thinking may possibly have seen some variation, but it does not make it an entity that is irrelevant.
Okay, Miracles. So you see, the extent of the cushioning is where obviously consumers will be looking at, and that's why already all the strategic positioning of BOST is important, because this threat that what is happening to the price of petroleum products at the pumps poses to the economy is known. It's evident. We're already seeing it, and the inflationary risks is clearly upon us. What is the expectation of you regarding the specific interventions of the cushioning that government is talking about will be put in place in a few days?
Well, Alfred, for me, I think that the lessons to be drawn out of all of these, before I even come to the issues, is that maybe this will be the starting point for Edudzi, myself, and all other stakeholders to begin to halt politicization of war, weaponizing it for political benefits. The NDC today are saying everything and doing everything to either try to justify, try to rationalize, try to make sense of, the situation. But it's something that they agree that whilst in opposition, largely, they weaponize to their benefit. I mean, this is just 3 weeks of war. 3 weeks. Alfred, 3 weeks of war. And we've seen fuel price, petrol move from, some were selling at 9 cedis. At some point, Star Oil and Co, 9.9, and so let's say 10 cedis. Move to 13.3, 14 cedis. Diesel hitting 17 cedis. If, like Comac said, if Mr. Trump decides to, say something again tomorrow, we could wake up on Wednesday or Thursday with diesel hitting 20 cedis and 19 cedis. We need to admit that our level of control as a country over these petroleum prices is very minimal, so that we can get everybody along. So that when we are having these conversations, you don't have government functionaries being on the defensive and opposition functionaries going on the attack. I think this conversation in the past 2 weeks have been had extensively, and I really don't want to belabor it. I mean, Ejapemesa was here last week. He made some very fantastic points, which for me should trigger the NDC and government today and say that never again would we go on the path we went when we were in opposition. I listened to Felix, the government communications minister, and anytime I listen to him speak, I realize that my friend is still in opposition mood and doesn't realize what time it is. For you to, even today, the situation we face, try to make any argument and point that, oh, this government has done well, we've managed it better, you've done nothing. As a matter of fact, we are not autopilots. We are on autopilot. See, if you go and look at even 2022, which they continuously use, and look at now, what we say is this: go and take the 2022 figures, Alfred, and ask yourself, when the war broke out somewhere in February 2022, what was the situation then? And what is the situation now? So let's look at this analysis quickly. On 24th February 2022, Russia-Ukraine war starts. Very light notes, like, the way Israel has started. They started bombing. Now, at the time, diesel was 7.99 a liter. By 3rd April, diesel had moved from 7.99 to 10.20. That is about 28% increase within the period, which is between 24th February and 3rd April of war. Now, all this time, crude was selling between 117 and 130 per barrel. Let's look at the current situation. On 28th February, and it's interesting, the dates on which this war starts. Russia-Ukraine started on 24th February. This started on 28th February, 2026. Now, between 28th February 2026, when the war on Iran started, the price of diesel in Ghana was 11.34. On the 3rd of April 2026, the price of diesel has moved from 17.70 to 17.70. That is 56% increase. So you see, if you're a government communications officer and you come and sit on radio or TV, and for propaganda value, even when you are supposed to drive all of us together to build a nation, you say, no, don't mind them. We've built the economy better, and that is why fuel is hovering. You are completely misleading the public. Because if we are to take the war within the same period of Russia, Ukraine, and Iran, and Israel, America, the Akufo Addo government actually managed the fuel pricing better within that period than you are. Really? 28% between 24th February to 3rd April of increase, and 56% between 28th February and now of increase. And then relative to the crude prices, today, crude prices within that period, the period I've been given in 2026 was between $100 to $110. But the Russia-Ukraine period, crude prices were hovering between 117 to 130. All I am saying is that if you want us to do propaganda, if you wanted to use data to look politically good, you have had only just a month of war. We haven't tested you yet. And if we are to use your performance now in a month to do anything, then we are in trouble if this war festers like Russia-Ukraine did.
Am I permitted to?
No, I beg you. I beg you. No, don't.
You will respond.
You have your time. I have things I'll respond to you. You just note it. I'm just giving you data. And the point is that data can be skewed to make the argument as convenient as you want.
Are you doing that?
No, yes, I am.
I mean, are you skewing data?
No. I am using the data for convenient analysis. And that's the point I was making to you, that the government communications minister should not go there. That is the point I am trying to make. That if I am to go on the tangent that a government communications minister has gone, then trust me, we can sit here the whole day and nobody will win this argument. Because we can pick the data and make it look good on all of us. And they can make an argument. One of the best arguments the government can make, which is fact, is that the forex is looking really good. And that if the forex is probably at 14 or 13, maybe we would even be selling diesel today at 20 and not be waiting for next week or 22. That is also very true. But again, that is the point I am making. Using data for convenient argument without substance. Now let me come to the substantive issue. Listen, people are suffering. Alfred, nobody should attempt to gaslight the people of this country. There are difficulties. Go out there and go and check. Industries are struggling. For some companies in this country, go to Temayenkleaf. You know, even though we have gas and all of that, most of them are still using petrol and diesel to power their plants and power their factories. So even 2 pesewa of increase in fuel affects industries. And once these industries are impacted, they are passing it on to consumers. So the reality cannot be lost on us. And so I like Edudzi's conversation this morning. Let's stick to that. That is progressive. Do not let us encourage the tangent with which the government communications minister goes. Because if he does, we'll get nowhere. We'll move in circles. What the government has done after everybody calling on them and drawing their attention, it's fantastic. They said, we need to intervene. That is what governments do. I mean, remember at some point in 2021, the NPP government suspended some levies on petroleum prices. It's been done before. And so if this government says we are going to do that, we encourage it. The problem is that as we speak, we don't know what government's intervention is. They've only said that the energy minister and the finance minister should go and look for how and what they can do it. So at the moment, there is very little we can even hold on to when it comes to the outcome of the cabinet meeting, except that we know for sure government would intervene. Now, what are the interventions? How impactful would they be how relevant, significant would they be? Those are very important things. And I keep hearing people talk about this Doomsor levy, one city Doomsor levy. At the onset, if you all recollect, when this Doomsor levy was being introduced, the primary object was to buy fuel to power our plants. That is what they said. That is what the government told us. Today, it's as if that has been relegated to the background, and everything you hear is people saying sector debt, sector. But there are several components in our fuel pricing that is also geared towards paying for energy sector debt. Now, let me even draw your attention to a very interesting thing. If you pick the Energy Commission's own report, Edudzi, it says that close to about 97% of our plants today are being powered by natural gas. It's in their report. Yeah. It is there. And then the interesting thing is that PURC has already made provision for natural gas procurement in the electricity tariffs that we are paying. What they call the weighted cost of gas. WACOG. We are already paying it when we pay for electricity bills. So if somebody asks you that, okay, can we get a report on how much the one city has given us? And then we get a report on how much the weighted average cost of gas that we are paying for has given us. It is fair. Because you see, Lawyer Bento, the problem I have is this. When I pay for my electricity, I have paid for the fuel that should power your plants. Now you are telling me that 97% of the fuel that you use to power the plant is from the gas. When you pick the PURC report, it says that the expected revenue from even the WACOG is about $7 billion. And Boakye is telling us that we need about $70 million every month to buy fuel.
So it's catered for.
That's what I heard you, unless maybe I was wrong. Yes. So it's catered for. So if you are getting all this money from us from our electricity tariffs, and you are still collecting one cedi from us from fuel, come on. It is only fair that by now you come and tell us that in the past 12 months, this is how much we've generated from the one cedi levy. This is how much we've generated from WACOG. This is how much we've required to buy fuel. This is how much we've used to pay our debt. How much of our debt is even left?
And how long will this one cedi be?
Exactly. And Alfred, I heard you make a point initially about, one cedi is going to pay debt. This government inherited debt. Listen.
No.
You didn't say anything wrong. Don't worry. You didn't say anything wrong.
I'm only telling you specifically what is.
I heard you.
You outlined the objectives.
I heard you. You didn't say anything wrong. You didn't say anything wrong. But the fact is that the energy sector debt is a legacy problem. It is legacy. Go and check how much the previous government in 8 years paid for energy sector debt. The more you pay, the more ECG is bringing upon you.
Yeah.
So the real situation is not how much the government is paying and how much we are realizing. The real situation is, as we are paying this one cedi to pay debt, what is being done on the ECG side? Yeah. Because the energy minister, when he was in opposition, told us in plain terms that when he comes in the first 100 days, he was going to fix ECG. He's on video, I have it. He said in the first 100 days, he will fix it. And that's not rocket science. So I am expecting a report that will tell me that, hey, our energy sector debt that we have been recurrently producing has been plugged. It's no longer a basket. Now we have been receiving some one cedi that has been paying. So it was 19 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion, but we've paid 4 billion. It's left with 16 billion. We can all even agree to make a projection and know when we can finish paying without our debt and take off this Doomsor levy. We need to put politics aside.
RTI on WACOG.
You understand? Put politics aside, Alfred. No politics here. Because for me, I know, and I keep saying it, governments will change even if you put gold on the road for us. It has nothing to do with. We don't need the NDC to fail before we come to power. When it is time for a change of government, it's about where we are as a country, what the various candidates are saying, what the vision is. The people will listen to them and say, well, based on where we are, I believe Mr. Bill Riverson has the ideas to take us to the next level. Not necessarily because NDC failed.
Yeah.
So I am not expecting the NDC to fail. For me to come and sit here and say, they need to fail, the energy says, I don't want them to fail. I want fuel prices to come down. If fuel prices comes down and NDC takes the credit, it means nothing to me. It doesn't mean that NDC would automatically win the next elections because they brought fuel down. No. The next election will be based on where we are, which of the candidates is espousing the vision that will take us to the next level. So I beg you, And I'm using this to call on Felix especially. He's the one causing the problem. Churning out.
He's not here.
No, but he's a government communications leader. He's a public officer. Please, he's a public officer.
I'm just
he has a right to
indicating to you that. Yes,
but we mentioned John Mahama all the time.
Yes. So.
He's a government communications. I'm saying that he should tone down on the propaganda. Leave propaganda to opposition parties.
Yeah.
As government in power, I'll end. I'll just end soon. As government in power, your job is to make sure that we are in a crisis. How do you bring relief to the people so that ultimately the people will have some respite? But as we speak and as I land, walk on the street of Kanda, everybody's home, the meter is beeping. They cannot afford to pay. Go to the market, cost of living is high. Go to our tertiary institutions, school fees have increased. The reality is that if fuel prices also goes up and we don't put it under control, people will struggle in this country, industries will collapse, jobs will be lost, and people cannot survive. And so we need to keep our eyes on the ball and get the government to quickly, get it done. Now, finally, on the government announcement after the cabinet, again, I beg you, what is the meaning of we continue to encourage, we are continuously admonishing political appointees that the ban against fuel coupon is still in force? Edudzi, Charlie, why? We have all been in government. Edudzi seated here. If tomorrow he has to travel to go to Tor and go and look at what is going on Tor, Edudzi will not use his money, his salary, to buy fuel into his car.
How do you know that?
Well, he won't. It's not how do I know, he won't. But why if government said then the government...
Here?
No, but which money is he going to use that?
It's even law.
Which money is he going to use to do that?
The company sends you, the
which
company
money
pays for it.
So that is pure populism. What is the meaning of that? Listen, when you are in government, nobody comes to you in the morning and say, this is fuel coupon for you and your wife. Nobody does that. You have been given an official vehicle. That official vehicle is what you use for official functions. That vehicle is fueled. And as we speak, in spite of the so-called ban from last year, every government official has their official vehicles fueled by the states. Nobody can come out and tell me otherwise. Even their own budget has it there, budgeted for. How do you budget for something you claim you banned?
There's a budget line for
fueling. It's in the budget. Vehicles. It's there in the budget. It's there.
It's in the 2026.
Go and read it. Yes, it's there. Now, how do you, and why would you even do that? Comac, Mr. Rifferson, which government would pass a budget or plan and say, I am not planning for fuel for government officials? Government will come to a ground. Because when you go to the Ministry of Energy, you have just 2 or 3 political appointees. The rest are technical people. They are using state fuel to move around. Then when it comes to John Jinapo, you say, as for you, I've given you a ban. You won't use fuel. But the interesting thing, which maybe they are still playing smart, is that when you read it, it says fuel coupons. So maybe fuel cards from Go card is not part, because that one is a coupon.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? The point is, they should save us the populism. He didn't need to even add that to the cabinet release, because that is irrelevant. That fuel coupon thing has nothing to do with the fuel pricing and the intervention that we're expecting government to bring. And then ultimately, there is nothing like a ban on fuel coupon, because everybody, including Felix himself and all the people he has at his ministry, are drawing on state fuel as we speak.
Well, there are a number of things that you said, which I wanted you to respond to.
But why are you letting me? So did I respond to him?
I need to.
Would I respond to?
Wait.
I'll respond to.
Ask questions of government. And he's the one sitting here in that capacity. Yes.
I need to play 2 roles here. I'm here as Felix Kwachi as well.
Look at that.
I think it's important to make this point. First of all, my brother relies on an Energy Commission purported report on how we're going to have a heavy reliance on gas. If you look, as early as 2025, June, Minister Jinapo had already given an indication that that Energy Commission report was problematic and disputed it. The record today does not show 95% reliance on gas.
But the Energy Commission is their job.
But that's what I'm saying that this report was prepared in 2024, projection into 2025, and the minister disputed it in June 2025. So you cannot continue to, in fact, if you are giving me an update actual today, then it becomes more reliable to do. But you see, this morning, my brother started by creating the impression that finally patriotism is a relevant political attribute. And so we should do a conversation that is not about politics. But he ended up doing politics. Governments are elected, or political parties go into election, first and foremost, with a social contract. That social contract is sold to the people. The people evaluate two competing ideas and will pick it. I am not old enough, but I think I've witnessed Ghana a bit. Many years ago, finance ministers will be the one who would declare what the price of petroleum products should be. I grew up listening to radio. And then we'll be waiting for Minister Kwampepra, Kwesi and Co. to tell us that fuel will be sold at so and so price. And that will be the price. We lived that generation before. And then we know what is happening. I lived at the time when one of Ghana's foremost legislators, J.H. Mensah, on the campaign platform in the year 2000, with a gallon of petrol, ask the people of this country, are you able to afford? So petrol politics had really been part of Ghana's political conversation, no doubt. I also recall candidate Akufo Addo in 2016, not too long ago, made the strong point that Yebaba Beteso, and then we hailed him. Then he comes. Wantiso. It went to 23. My brother Miracle says, oh, what is the data? And that, oh, if you pick February 24th, when the Russia-Ukraine, first of all, the Russia-Ukraine war has not stopped. For the avoidance of that, it has not stopped. It's ongoing. That's for the record.
It has been priced in already.
Please,
I'll respond though. Because he spoke, I responded, so I also respond. Just take notes. No, but you have to take notes. You know me, now it don't happen.
Two things my brother decided to do this morning. First, make sweeping statement. Companies in terms are suffering.
They're not sweeping, they're fine.
Please. Then he proceeds. Cost of living had gone up. Miracle. Sometimes sincere politics actually endears you to people. That's a fact. I knew a senior lawyer who had voted NPP throughout. By 2022-2024, this senior lawyer was telling me how he was struggling to pay the fees of his niece doing medicine abroad because of the dollar. Today, that senior lawyer is seeing great relief, and you are still talking about people going through living conditions. But you see, let me make this point. At the time of the Russia-Ukraine war, yes, crude prices actually went up. It went up at a point to $122 per barrel. But you see, what you are not telling the good people of this country, and he knows and he understands the dynamics. It is not only crude that goes into pricing. You also look at suppliers' premium and many other components. So you will notice that even at the time, say, and I'll use this period, 1st November to 15th November 2022, if you needed to buy 1 metric ton of diesel, it costs $1,222 for every metric ton. Why was it so? It was so because when it comes with logistics disruption among others. But what is not in doubt is that at the time of Russia-Ukraine, the Strait of Hormuz was never closed. That's a fact. Today, and I'll give you this example again, as we speak, before this war started, Alfred, before this war started, a metric ton of diesel was going for $695 for every metric ton. Yesterday, when I checked, it is 1,334. 1,334.
Up from
695 to 1,334. Twice the price. That has never happened under you. It never happened. Even during the Russia-Ukraine. That's a fact. Because you see, the cost of refining the product is different. I'll give you another example. Before the war, the supplier's premium was $20. He's here. Today, the supplier's premium is $170 to $200. $170 to $200. That is the supplier's premium as we speak. So see
from the $20.
From $20 as at 28th February, today it is $170 to $200. And anybody that understands petroleum trading will tell you that the supplier premium is a major one. And usually the determining factors, one, insurance, availability of vessels. So for instance, if you have a situation where there is this closure on the Strait of Hormuz, and the Iranian government says, for instance, we have mined the waters. You don't want to put your vessel that is costing $100 million through that. So the insurance you'll be paying will go up. Two, because of the risk, you don't have a lot of vessels willing to use that. So all this put together will increase the price. That was never the case under Russia-Ukraine war. Two, if you look, the highest price we have ever seen for petroleum pricing in the last few, let me say 5 years, was what happened at the first pricing window, Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, where petrol went for 17 cedis and diesel traded for 23.45 Ghana cedis in this country. That's the highest. What created the problem at that time was that the Ghana cedi at that time, incidentally, was doing 17.20. Alfred, 17.20. Now, are we saying by any stretch of argument, are we saying by any stretch of argument that it is not the responsibility of government to control the exchange rates? Is that the argument? So that if a set of persons with all their skill sets have the benefit of managing the exchange rates and they take it to 17.20, it matters not. I remember vividly, there was a time when one of our political leaders said, "Na Ghana cedi no, aye hata hata. And it's na me first branch here dieba. No me boy normal cedi ni yede." Those conversations, we've had it here before. In fact, the reason why some governments in the past were described as incompetent was because of exchange rates. You remember the theory, when in doubt, observe the exchange rate. It is true today, it is true now. The point I am making is that governments deliberate by deploying several policy skill sets, policy interventions, have resulted in a situation where the exchange moved somewhere from 15 at a point to even 9, and now we are dealing with almost 10.95, 11. That's government deliberate work.
It was on there.
It is not fanciful. It is not wishful thinking. It is not the product of people just wishing. No. People sat down, thought outside the box. People sat in rooms, discussed, cabinet, among others. And this is the product. My brother Kofi here, one of the things that he's used this platform to propagate is the fact that Governor Esiama committed great errors for diversifying our gold reserve. Has he not done that using this platform? And I'm sure he will do that today too.
No, the governor has invited him.
No, I'm just saying
I think we've dealt with that matter.
But I'm saying that, please,
yes.
but I'm saying that it is policy choice. Others had the opportunity and said, look, we would keep it, would just accumulate it. Others also came and said, no, we can build, but then who benefits? Ultimately, it should be the Ghanaian. So if I diversify, it will show up my reserve, cushion the ordinary people. We do know. And he here will tell you, he's independent-minded. Ghana is a net importer of petroleum product. That's a fact. It doesn't matter how you want to look at it. You can't color it politically. We are a net importer of petroleum product. Any country that is a net importer of petroleum product knows that your biggest headache will be forex dynamics. And so a deliberate attempt by government to resolve the forex problem cannot be wishful thinking. It is deliberate government intervention. Even today, we all do know that petroleum prices, because it moved from 695 for a metric ton to 1,300, that is double. We should be selling the price double at the pump. Please, I'm coming. I'm just saying.
That's not the only thing that goes into the determination.
No, that is why I'm telling you that the other ones have been held by the government. It is true government intervention.
Which calculation?
So there are three.
You know the econometrics. I didn't do poorly in econometrics.
You did very well. That's why I'm surprised.
No, so that is why you should. No, that is why you should. We can the voodoo mathematics. Let me conclude.
I want to understand.
I'll just conclude on this.
The metrics that
we have never weaponized fuel for our politics.
Who is that? Who is speaking?
We have never. What we have done at that time is to keep government on its toes, and nothing stopped Miracle from doing same to me. And I've always maintained that every serious government needs a serious opposition and not rabble-rousing. That should be the distinction. We need a serious opposition. What is not in doubt is our brother's record. It is still fresh in our minds, regrettably. And so, let's, please, I will say this. See, Minister John Jinapo, my sector minister, has demonstrated remarkable leadership in that sector. Look, the activities of ECG today, even the full implementation of the cash waterfall mechanism alone, do you know that there was a time in this country that the World Bank guarantee 500 million Ghana cedi was drawn down under your administration, completely drawn down. Today we have built that. You think it's wishful thinking? That's leadership. And when you draw down a World Bank guarantee, it impacts on your international credibility. You destroy Ghana's credibility to the point that even for the purposes of our economy, the major rating agencies, what did they do to us? Junk. So when people are demonstrating clear efforts,
this was going to be your last one.
Yes, so that Dr. Reversing will come.
Yes.
And we'll have the opportunity to deal with the direct intervention to make things better for
that's what we
Thanks for watching. Like and share the video. You can also drop your comment. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to turn on the notification.